Welcome. Today is the 10th day of uh, what are we? Cheshvan, and the 11th of November, or is it the other way around? It's the 9th day of Cheshvan, and it's the 10th day of November. There we go. And we're starting Parshat Vayeira, the fourth Torah portion. And we have a number of different things happening in this portion. The first one is, of course, Abraham seeing the three angels, the three messengers of God. One of them came to heal him from the circumcision he had taken out when he was 99, and that was what we ended last week's Torah portion with. The other one came to tell him about the impending birth of his son, and the third one came to destroy Sodom, Gomorrah, and the three other cities of what now is the northern part of the Dead Sea. And back then, it wasn't the Dead Sea, it was actually a very fertile valley. And Sodom and Gomorrah were at the very south of that valley. It's a north part, what we today call the north part of the Dead Sea. There's a lot to talk about that, not right now. And one of the things that happened was that Lot, who is Abraham's nephew, is saved. So we read in this week's portion that, let me just give you the verse exactly. So we're chapter 19 and which verse are we talking about? Verse 16. And it's a famous verse because it begins with a word that says he tarried, talking about Lot. It took him a long time to get out of the city, out of Sodom, where he lived. Let me just read the translation for you. He lingered in order to salvage whatever he could of his belongings. So, and this is the important part that we're going to be talking about. So out of God's compassion for him, the men grasped him and his wife and two daughters by the hand. They're talking here about the two angels. They led them out and left them on the outskirts of the city. And the words that we are going to focus on is out of God's compassion for him. Now, normally the word for compassion in Hebrew is rachamim. But here, the Torah uses a special word which only appears 3 times. This root only appears 3 times in the Pentateuch. And in Hebrew it's bechemlat Hashem alav. Again, you would translate it as compassion, but it's one of the synonyms of a compassion. It doesn't mean exactly the same thing. The compassion is rachamim, and this is chemla. They're close also, because they share 2 common letters in the root, chet and mem. And rachamim has a resh in the beginning, rachem. And chemla starts with chet and mem, and it ends with lamed. By the way, the resh and the lamed also interchange. There's a special interchange in Hebrew called the letters of lamenar, which are lamed, mem, nun, and resh. Those 4 letters, they interchange in many roots and words. What we're going to do today is, before we even get into the whole deep topic of the partsuf here, the model that we want to build here, let's just say a few words about what this word means. What does it mean to have chemla, to have compassion? I think a lot of people would even translate it as pity, but it really is compassion. So what does it mean to have this type of compassion, chemla, again, as opposed to having mercy or compassion over someone? So in order to understand this, we need to look at the 3 times when this word appears. We can learn from the other 2 times what exactly the meaning is. So the second time is, maybe surprisingly or not, in Exodus 2:6, and there we find Bitya, the daughter of Pharaoh, having chemla, having this type of compassion over Moses, who she finds in the little basket that he was in. And there it says, vatachmol alav. She had compassion for him. And the third time is in Deuteronomy 13:9, and there it's talking about someone who is trying to convince other people to worship an idol, to worship a God except for God. And there the Torah ends with lo tachmol velo techaseh. You should not have compassion and you should not cover up what this person has done. You have to prosecute him. Now, how is this all related? All three cases, because all three cases are instances in which the compassion comes with the context of some kind of judgment. Meaning, it's not regular compassion. Regular compassion is considered to be a harmonious combination of both loving kindness on the right and might, gvura, on the left. In other words, normal compassion is the source. It's even considered to be the source, not just the combination, but it's the source from which love comes, and on the other hand, judgment comes. So normal compassion can be equal parts of love and judgment at the same time. And so therefore, we usually speak about being compassionate in court in the sense of, well, you deserve such and such, but we have compassion over you, so we're being more lenient and we're lowering the penalty. So let's say you were supposed to get, 5 years in jail, we're going to give you only 3. Why? Because we're compassionate. Compassion is very tricky. It's tricky because you can't have compassion over someone who doesn't appreciate compassion. And the only way you can know that someone appreciates compassion is you have to see that they themselves have compassion, that they themselves have the consciousness of giving, of understanding that compassion is because you're a sentient being, because you have a soul. They have to be able to understand that. If they don't understand that themselves, there's no point in being compassionate, because it will only be taken as weakness. So that's compassion, that's rachamim, that's the usual word. But chemla, again, it always happens in the Pentateuch in the context of a judgment. But the point here is that the judgment is that you're supposed to completely be judged harshly. And the chemla, this form of pity or compassion, is trying to overturn the entire judgment and to actually save you. So, in Lot's case, what we have before us in this week's Parsha, Lot was supposed to perish with everyone else in Sodom and Gomorrah. This wasn't a difficult judgment, because Lot was part of that culture. He was part of the whole Sodom and Gomorrah scene. True, he was maybe more lenient, let's call it, or he had other ideas, but in the end, he facilitated, and he was one of the judges, and he was very much to be judged like everyone else. But here it says that because of God's chemla, because of God's compassion over him, not only was he not judged, he was completely saved. And that is an amazing thing. Meaning you've taken judgment and you've turned it completely into loving kindness. When it comes to Moses, the same thing holds. Why does the same thing hold? Because Moses was under, as far as Bitya, Pharaoh's daughter, was concerned, he was under the same judgment, that the decree that Pharaoh had made, that every child, every male child born to the Hebrews, to the Israelites, should be thrown killed in the Nile, in the waters. And so he was with the death sentence on his head. And here, Bitya suddenly turns it upside down. Not only turns it upside down, but actually he was raised in Pharaoh's court, in his home. So that's the complete reversal of this type of judgment. The third case, again, is pretty clear once we follow this logic. Here we have someone who is, again, deserving of judgment because it's the worst sin in the Torah is idolatry. He's deserving of judgment. He's even worse than someone who went and served an idol or served a false god because he's convincing others to do it. So the Torah says, here I forbid you from taking the judgment and as much compassion as you have and turning it upside down and letting the person get away with it. So these are the three instances. This is the verse this is the word in the verse that we're going to look at in the next coming few days, and we'll see how we analyze this in terms of a partzuf, in terms of a model. We didn't exactly see a model in the making yet, so you'll have to join tomorrow, God willing, and we'll continue and hopefully start laying the groundwork for understanding this model. Thanks for joining today. All the best.